when it comes to the relationship between President Trump and Princess Pahlavi, there's what we know because it's public. There's what people are saying, and and then there's me, which constantly highlights the things that we don't actually know. Okay, and I know a lot of people prefer analysts who are certain about things or were confident and like, oh, this is what's happening. But because I'm a skeptic, I will always talk about the things that we don't know. I know that's a lot less interesting to people, but I think that's how I do things, right? So President Trump kept constantly has mentioned that he thinks Princess of Pahlavi is a good person, that he likes him, and but he doesn't know how much popularity and how much support he has in Iran. He also has communicated multiple times that they're looking at people who are already inside Iran, who are part of the regime, not an outsider. Okay, so the people, so the analysis by many people is that these are all just mind games, and it could be right. I don't know that that President Trump understands that Princess of Pahlavi is the only option. However, he cannot say any of this because we don't want he on purpose is basically lying basically to regarding how important Princess of Pahlavi is, so that United States doesn't come, so it doesn't seem like United States is picking the leader for the Iranian people, right? My interpretation is that we don't know, but it doesn't really matter because the effect of it is basically what we want. So a lot of the things that it like a lot of the analysis is that I don't know, President Trump is playing 4D chess game. To me, if the result is the same result as the 4D chess game, does it really matter if the intention was the 4D chess game or not? If we're still getting the same result, because all I care about, like when does it really matter how much President Trump likes or doesn't like or even thinks about Princess of Pahlavi as long as he's bombing the fuck out of these jihadis at the Islamic Republic? Like, at the end of the day, once this obstacle is removed from our path, which is the only obstacle stopping the Iranian people from being able to choose their own destiny and have democracy. I mean, once we remove that, then the Iranian people are going to have Princess of Pahlavi. So the only metric that I am measuring is how much closer are we getting to the fall of the regime? Because at the end of the day, people are like, "Oh, is President Trump going to pick Princess of Pahlavi or not?" I'm like, I know Americans are very powerful, but they're not going to be able to pick our leader for us. Unfortunately, the only people right now that are able to stop us from having Pahlavi rule is the Islamic Republic. And the only reason they are able to do that and America is not able to do that is because they are willing to shoot into crowds of people. And America, with all of its military might, they're not willing to do that. So all of their military might is not going to, even if they wanted somebody other than Pahlavi, they're not going to be able to stop us from picking Pahlavi as long as the Islamic Republic is moved out of the way. So I actually prefer President Trump talking about Princess of Pahlavi this way. I really don't know behind the scenes what he's thinking, because for us, this is in our advantage for us to bring Princess of Pahlavi without it seeming like President Trump has handpicked Princess of Pahlavi for us. So this language that he has, whether it's intentional and not, and if you know, then I don't know, you have access to knowledge that I don't have, or you're better at mind reading than I am. But whether it's intentional or not, it has the desired effect, in my opinion. Does that answer? Oh, well, I mean, you're not even here, so I don't know who I'm asking. Do you guys think I just answered the question?
I think you just answered the question. I will read to you the next question from Samantha. Since there are a lot of European countries which probably won't wake up to the threat of radical Islam before a European country has completely fallen, what does Armin think about prioritizing making sure the nuclear powers, like France and UK in particular, are not the first to fall.
Okay, so guys, again, I'm going to say something that is unpopular here. I don't think we're going to have full on Sharia takeover of European countries, right? I don't like. I keep on talking about how big of a threat Islam is to Europe, but I also think that exaggerating makes the real threat seem insignificant. The real Islamic threat to Europe is very, very, very significant, and by acting like we are going to all of a sudden have like full on Sharia takeover and Europe will fall, then the real threat, the real Islamic threat to Europe is going to seem like so small, and people are like, well, I guess we could live with that because it's not full on Sharia takeover, right? So that's never going to happen. Like there is, guys, there is no so there is no population analysis ever, even by the most alarmist, that shows that we ever even going to have a majority Muslim population in any of these European countries. The issue is that these people are going to be able to do a lot of damage while being a minority because they are very united, they're very active, they're very politically active, and they act like as a voting bloc, and they are going to have a major influence on the politics of these European countries because every single European politician needs to, well, not every single one of them, but many European politicians need to take them seriously. And because they vote, their values, I mean, the threat that I see is actually even worse than terrorism, because terrorism, the harm of terrorism is local, is devastating, is tragic. But for every Muslim terrorist, there are thousands of Muslims that would never do terrorism, but they have shit values and they vote accordingly. And they will influence the politics of your country in a way that weakens the very foundations and the very principles that has made your countries more prosperous. Like, and I know this is boring. I measure these in economic cost because to me, economy is well-being. And I think this is going to basically keep your European countries behind, and it's going to make their growth slower compared to other countries that are based on more values that have been established when it comes to making a country prosper. That is the effect. Okay. And people, when we were raising the alarm regarding Muslim effect on a country, people just imagine explosions or beheadings and Sharia law. And when I come talk about like a slower rate of economic growth, people like yawn and they get bored. But guys, economy is everything, right? And all of this slower progress is, it kills more people than war. And I know this is boring to you guys, because it doesn't get headline news, but poverty kills more than terrorism. Poverty kills more than war. And this is going to keep Europe behind. This is going to keep Europe, as the rest of the world is trying to find ways to take a full advantage of of the fourth industrial revolution that we're in the middle of right now. Europe is not going to be in a position to take advantage of all of that, as it's going to fall behind. But I don't see any position for them to. So it's not like, oh, now all of a sudden we have European Islamic countries that have nukes now that they're going to threaten the whole world with nukes. It's more like because they're so influential in the politics of the country, when we need Europe to participate in maintaining the global order, this Western framework, the Western model that we have for the global order that we're in, they're not going to participate. And I predicted that this is going to be their effect at some point. And you saw Keir Starmer, for example, now coming, and at first they said that they're not going to participate at all, but not like European countries are not participating in these military operations. But more than that, Keir Starmer, when eventually he sent some ships for defensive purposes, he had to come and basically explain, especially to the Muslim population in the UK, for why, like, they do not, like, they're not up for this, like, we're not, like, he had to beg its Muslim population to understand why they had to do this. So you could see when between your national security is going to be jeopardized when you have to take that voting block into account, given that most of the threats from the world comes from the Islamic world, and now you have Muslims in your country that vote. So now even if you have an army, good, even if you had a good army, you're politically handicapped because you have to worry about their vote, right? This is the cost. This is how we should talk. And again, this is just one example. There's many. I can come up with a huge list of examples of how having this voting block in your country is going to devastate your country. That's what we need to talk about.
I'm gonna say that you didn't fully answer this question. Can you address why European
Well,
countries don't face the same threat that Iran did in '79?
because Iran, okay, so because Iran was a Muslim majority country, and no demographic prediction comes up with a situation where European countries are going to become a Muslim majority country. There's not a single one of them that does that. That's the difference. Iran in 1979 was more than 90% Muslim. Does
So,
that answer the question?
yes, I now
But but
consider
ag-
the question.
but I don't want people to underestimate the threat here. Like, I'm not saying this is not an issue. Okay, 6% is big. Is a huge, like, Iran is still a learning lesson for European countries. Okay, so you still have to use Iran as an example for what this leftist Islamic alliance could do to a country, but it's not the same. There are resemblances,
Um,
but not completely the same. But yeah, go on.
yeah. So now I'll let Jeffrey respond to this.
Yeah, I want to touch on. There's a lot of good points there. So there's very much Arm is not wrong when he's very much correct in the idea when you overstate a threat, the subsequent backlash when said overstating is debunked to motivate people to dismiss the threat altogether is a very real issue. That's actually some of the things that hostile intelligence agencies do. They try to get you to chase ghost stories so you're wasting limited resources or ammunition against phantom targets or to disperse all your, so real threats get through. That said, the idea that Islamic fundamentalists haven't weaponized mass immigration and relative childbirth, that's directly refuted by, like, that's a real issue. So that was actually stated by both Gaddafi and Arafat. In fact, Gaddafi, when he gave up his weapons of mass destruction program, I think it was in 2003, four, right after right around the beginning of our intervention in Iraq, they actually interviewed Gaddafi. Actually, the lady who was at the Marshall Institute, she talked about this at like a kind of closed. She also said he was a really scummy guy. Anyway, so like they asked him like, why'd you give it up? And he go, part of it was threat credibility. The other part is he ultimately realized, given mass immigration and or relative childbirth rates, that Europe would become an Islamic continent within 50 years, and Islam would de facto own nuclear weapons. So I mean, that's a like BT's concern is not without merit. That backlash and the backlash to that is already happening. I mean, you see that happening in parts of France and parts of Great Britain. Here's the issue. It's similar to like what Armin had said. The issue is how to expedite the de-Islamification, right? The weaponized version of immigration and or childbirth while guarding against while ensuring that that backlash operates within the laws and norms of those nations and guarding against amplification by other hostile actors like Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, Chinese Communist Party, shake a stick, you'll hit an asshole, to turn that into full blown civil war to paralyze those nations prior to the onset of high intensity world war. So yeah, those are very real issues. Like that's actually a really important issue and topic that needs to be discussed and very much is not discussed because it's a faux pas to do so. Leftists don't like that because it violates identity politics, and plus like they leftists in the contemporary red green alliance is very much a direct descendant of the red black alliance. They don't want to see their ally get minimized. Well, what they think is their ally. I mean, those are all really cool points. Anyway, if you want to look at
Yeah,
relative, go ahead. Sorry.
no, just to confirm what you're saying, I completely agree that they have weaponized mass migration and birth rates, and they clearly communicate that they have weaponized that. And I also do know that their intention is not only to take over Europe, Their intention is to take over the whole world. Like I know that, yeah. So I know that that's their intention, and they clearly communicate that one day we're going to take over Europe, or Europe is going to be Muslim. I mean, I grew up watching these people talk about how they're going to make the White House, not forget Europe, like the White House is going to turn into a Hossainia. So that is their goal. Complete global domination is their goal. I know that. Yeah.
Okay, and Peter, really quickly.
So, couldn't is there a possibility that there could be like
Peter, if you can't hear anything. Oh,
oh,
You know,
can
I
you hear me
hear him.
now?
I hear
hi.
him. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
now.
ahead.
Is there a possibility that there could be like a Islamist coup in a European country, even if they only had a minority, they might still be able to gain power?
I mean, they already have power. I mean, they have you have Islamically minded, like not just Muslim, but Muslims with the actual like Islamically jihadi mindset already holding seats and in the halls of power in Western countries. So it's to me, it's not like a binary. It's a spectrum, right? And their influence is growing. They already have representative, they already have politicians, the people who decide what these armies are used for. Some of them are now Muslims with jihadi mindset. So, and that influence is going to increase. Okay, it's never going to be a complete takeover, but it will grow. They already have some control over your armies and your police, and that influence will grow. But again, a trend is a trend until it's not, right? We have to also take into account that once it gets to a certain level, there will be a pushback against it. I mean, that's what we are here for, and that's what many other people are doing as well. And there is a tolerance level. So the problem that we have right now is the Muslim bloc, even though they're small, like even if they're 6%, they don't act like 6%. They act like 12% or even more because they're very active, because they're very politically motivated, because they're united. But if they eventually, instead of being 6% of the population, they end up being, I don't know, 15% of the population, then their effect is going to be like 40% in politics. But that influence is going to be so negative that the opposition to them, they're going to turn into blocks as well, and they're going to become a lot more politically active. This scenario that you need to be really afraid of is that we're going to have what I predict might happen is European countries are going to be very, very divided. We're not going to have a complete Islamic takeover. We're going to have the politics of, for example, UK turn into two camps that are so, their worldviews are so against each other. Like we're going to have like a political internal civil war. We're going to have the jihadis being very influential in politics, but this is becoming so intolerable for the other people in the UK that they're going to also become more and more like, Tommy Robinson fans or Reform fans or Restore fans. They're going to, or maybe future parties like that even go further than those parties that we have right now. They're going to become more and more relevant as Islam becomes more relevant in these countries. Parties and political movements like that are going to also become more powerful as well. So it's not like Islam is going to grow in politics and it's not going to see a reaction. You also have to put into your calculation the more relevancy and support that those people are going to have when more people in the UK, for example, see how influential Islam is getting. So eventually the situation is going to get very tense because we're going to have a lot of conflict between these forces within this country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it could turn into an actual civil war in the UK or else?
I see a lot of terrorists. I see a lot of like violence. I see a lot of stabbing. I see a lot of like I don't I don't see, because for it to be a civil war, you need two parts of the army to actually fight against each other. So I don't see that happening, but I see so much conflict that people will describe it as a civil war without it actually meeting the definition of a civil war, but it will be so intense that people will describe it as civil war.
And last word to Nail Bunny.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond because I'm in the UK. So I think that there is perhaps not a lot of knowledge about the fact that people really do have a lot of guns here. People think of the UK as, oh, no one has any guns. Yeah, they do. Farmers have guns. Ex forces have guns. I know people with guns, hunters with guns. They're all in areas that are pretty much around army bases, actually. They're all in the east and sort of the northeast. So, and this is not coincidentally the area where Rupert Lowe is as an MP. And what I think is that anybody, people don't know who Rupert Lowe is, sorry. He's Restore Britain. So he's the one that came out with, this is what we're going to do. And everybody was actually really happy about it. And the thing about it is, these Islamists, these nutters that are all ghettoized in this country. Now, yes, it's 6%. That is true. But what you need to understand is they're all in Bradford. They're all in Birmingham. They're not even all in London. What I'm saying, they're all in Tower Hamlets in London. They are in ghettos of their own making. And they've also put themselves into a corner in the fact that they're all on benefits and they don't work. So where's the money coming from? And the thing is that I think that what has happened with Rupert Lowe, of course he's not going to say this, is people have come to him and said, what's to stop us from just rolling into one of these neighborhoods, one of these cities, in the neighborhoods that they live in these cities, sealing the exits on a mosque and setting on fire. And if anybody gets out, they shoot them. And
Okay, Neil Bunny, can you before
I'm not saying that's the thing
I
to do.
I know, I know, I know. I just want you to say that
Okay.
because we're gonna put this on YouTube. Like, clarify
Yeah.
that. Thank you. Go on.
Okay. I'm not saying that's a good thing to do. That's not a good thing to do. But the thing about it is, what they need to understand in trying to push this stuff on an entire populace when they are a tiny minority is that Rupert Lowe is your friend. He's your friend because he is proposing things where no one gets hurt, where you can be deported, you can assimilate. These are your choices. If you don't want to integrate, then you need to go. Those are your choices. And I think that they should look at him as their friend, their best friend, because he's offering that. Because he's going between the people that are not going to react positively to being pushed around in their own country, in their own culture. And I think that that's my advice to them, is that he's your best friend. You should probably listen to him, because the alternative is not going to be pretty and you don't want to go there. And they've
N-
made themselves targets by living in ghettos. And
Neil Bunny, I have a question. I have a
yeah,
question. So can they? So his solution is to deport them, even though they've been naturalized and they've been like citizens. Is there a pathway to that at all? Is that
yeah,
possible?
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's records of people being naturalized. You can just, all you need to do is go, right. Do they speak English? No, they don't. Okay, they leave. I'm sorry. How long have you been here?
Is
You've been
like
5 years. You
no, no,
don't
no.
speak
I'm not.
English.
I'm not. My question is not that if this would be a good thing to do. I'm saying within the legal framework of the UK, is that even possible? Like, is there anything like because the way I've been told, this might be wrong, but the way I've been explained to that there's no legal tool to do that. I'm not saying this is correct or not, but they're saying like the way that the laws are, there's no path to being able to do such a thing. That's what
Yeah, you
what
can
I've been told.
you can definitely denaturalize somebody, yes.
No, yeah, but yeah, I know because that ISIS lady was denaturalized,
Yeah,
right? But they say
exactly.
like, but that for you to legally to be able to do that, like you have to show like she's a terrorist or there's like a significant crime. There's no legal pathway to again what I've been told to denaturalize people simply for not assimilating. Like there is no legal framework for that.
Yeah, but that's up to the judiciary. So
Okay. I hope you're right.
not integrating is, just saying not integrating is a denaturalizing offense. So if you didn't integrate, and that can be simply be you didn't learn English, or
And you
you
could do
didn't,
that?
or you committed a crime,
Hmm.
or that you are on benefits.